Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of FinServ Tech Oracles. I'm Jerry Murphy, and I'm here with my oracular colleague, John Burke, and we're going to share thoughts on technology for financial services firms. In this episode, John, I thought we'd discuss next generation infrastructure for financial services. And the first thing I was thinking is there's been a lot of emphasis lately on, we talk a lot about next generation technologies like AI, cyber, quantum. I'm kind of wondering if we've kind of lost touch with what infrastructure financial services need. So I'm wondering if you could think about maybe first with things like access networks. What do you think is needed there? Has there been a big change?
Uh, I, I'd say, yeah, there has been. I think most financial services organizations and really most organizations generally are still working on access networks that are sort of standard 2016, 2018 fare, which is to say wired primary connectivity, wireless, uh, pretty much ubiquitous, but considered secondary to the wired. And of course, in the intervening time, wired has become the main means of connectivity for almost everybody, at least in their hearts, and it's what they want. But they don't always have the infrastructure to back it up. So, yeah, my number, or my first, I wouldn't say my number one in terms of priority, but my first thing to recommend to folks would be to redesign their internal Wi-Fi so that they treat it as the primary means of getting to everything. So they're beefing up capacity, they're beefing up security, and they're probably beefing up coverage a little bit more as well.
Right. So what do you think about when you reach out from what I would call, say, access and LAN to the actual wide area network? Because I mean, now even today, post COVID, you still have a fair number of people working to home. Do they need to rethink, what they're doing for their wide area network?
Sure. And for a couple of reasons. One is, all that stuff that's moved out to cloud is now traffic that doesn't have to move from site to site on a private WAN. So take a good hard look at what traffic your company's actually generating site to site. And most folks find that it's less than a quarter and sometimes vanishingly small percentage of traffic. So with that in mind, consider junking the private WAN to most small sites. Consider, shifting to just ZTNA, basically access to your systems from those sites over the bare internet or, barely firewalled internet. And only for sites that actually generate a fair amount of traffic to other sites, stick with some kind of private WAN connectivity. And of course, there the story is, go SD-WAN, go SASE, really get up to date on how you interconnect your sites, both to each other and to all those cloud resources that are.
All right, that makes sense, John. And that kind of brings us to the data center, wherever the hell that is. I mean, and I guess for me, especially with financial services companies, we've had such a cloudification of our infrastructure that how is any of that impacting these guys, or how do you look at how they should be actually treating their data centers, question mark?
We still see most organizations that ever had a data center of their own continuing to have a data center of their own, sort of for the next business cycle. So another 5 to 7 years. With that in mind, they should be making sure that they've got the right stuff in there, not just carrying through the way they've always done things. So, in addition to, the super hot topics like making sure you've got the kind of hardware in there that makes it easy for you to do your AI in-house. If you're the kind of company that does the AI in-house, you need to be thinking a layer down about your infrastructure, power distribution, and cooling, because the higher end servers are definitely still getting denser and hotter. And some data centers are having trouble delivering enough power to a rack to fill the rack, and delivering enough enough cooling to that rack to keep it from melting. So focusing on the infrastructure layer primarily in there, but not leaving aside the data center network and the fact that there you need to get to like a full software-defined layer in the data center network with full zero trust network access amongst the servers. We still see that being this sort of big blind spot for a lot of IT operations, even IT operations that are otherwise very much into zero trust thinking. They're still not there in the middle of their data center server networks.
All right. So is there any final thoughts on this that you would recommend to people who are looking at approaching, an infrastructure analysis and refresh?
Sure. Take a hard look at how much stuff you're keeping on premises and make adjustments to your cloud-addled way of thinking. Everything's not out in the cloud, and you know that. So pay close attention, not just to how the things that are still on premises talk to stuff in the cloud, but at how they talk to each other, how that's provisioned, how that's secured, and how that is being rendered future ready for this next round of tumult.
All right. Well, if I can think about that and recap really quickly, I think the first thing I heard was really look at your LAN access and maybe get off of the wire and get onto Wi-Fi and wireless for your primary connectivity. Uh, Second is look at your wide area network and really start looking at things like SD-WAN and make smart use of the infrastructure, not necessarily have a bunch of private networks floating around out there. And then last, in your data centers, don't think too much about cloud everywhere all the time, but you do have some actual servers and infrastructure. Take a relook at what you're having on-prem and make sure you're thinking smart about that, especially for things like power and cooling as things get denser. All right. Well, thanks again, John, for your time. And that's it until next week. Thanks for watching or listening to us. You can register for the entire series online. Please do that and turn in next week at 9 o'clock for our next episode of FinServ Tech Oracles right before the markets open on Tuesday. Thanks again for coming and have a great day.
Thanks all.